Welcome to Infertility Ain't Me podcast, a show that amplifies diverse stories about the struggles of infertility and fertility in a safe space. Our goal is to normalize fertility stories that validate, give hope, and create a community where no one is left silently suffering. Welcome back, y'all, to Infertility Ain't Me podcast. I'm your host, Monique. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Today's guest is named Ms. Brittney Jackson. She is a media personality as well as a podcast host too. The name of her podcast is called Fertility Ain't Fair. So make sure you guys check it out, listen to it, get into her story, get into the guests that she has, and you can also find her on Instagram as well. Brittney and her husband began their family expansion in the late summer of 2017 when Brittney stopped taking birth control. They were already engaged and had been in their relationship for some time, and they decided, hey, well, let's just go off of birth control and see what happens. And so in today's episode, Brittney shared with us her journey where she is today, because she's still in the midst of it. She hasn't actually started IVF yet, but she's been through multiple cycles of IUI that are medicated and non-medicated. She also shares with us diagnosis, and how that came about. It was very shocking way that she came to being diagnosed with endometriosis, and she had had painful periods for many years, and there was no explanation for it. And then before her endometriosis diagnosis, she was diagnosed with recurrent cysts as well as fibroids. And so it was during her time of getting one condition fixed that another condition was found. And so today she shares with us how that happened and also what she went through up until this point. And then she also offers some very wise words on through this thing called infertility, and how we can be better at dealing with our partners as well, and how we can be better for ourselves and being made whole while we're still in the midst of it. And when I say being made whole, I mean emotionally and mentally being as stable as possible. And then the other part of Brittney's story that she shares with us is the fact that she's a bonus mom, and how she navigated being a bonus mom up until this point, and how she fertility and being a new bonus mom as well as a wife. So she shares a lot with us today. She's very open with us, and hopefully inspire you to get help if you need it, and to also stay mindful of how you're feeling mentally and emotionally, and how it is being manifested in you and through you. And so please listen to the entire episode and stick around to hear all of Brittney's story, and then her inspiration for creating the podcast and platform Fertility Ain't Fair. And you can also find that on Instagram, just to reiterate. And we'll be back in just a moment with Brittney, with our girl Brittney. Thank you so much, girl, for coming on the pod and sharing with us where you are right now, because you're still in the thick of things.
Girl, I am. I'm in it.
Oh my gosh. So I appreciate you so very much. It's not easy at all, as you know, to talk about it while you're still in the midst of it. And it's very difficult to get others to share while they're in the middle of it on a public platform, and you being in the media, I'm pretty sure you've experienced times where people haven't wanted to do the thing that they said that they were going to do. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you for showing up despite it all.
Yes. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Pleasure is all mine. I'm a real big advocate for representation. So when I saw your podcast, I was like, oh, I got to find her. Get her on the show for more representation for brown girls, for black girls everywhere.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to go ahead with a icebreaker question like I normally do. And is there anything that you can, or that you've been doing right now, that makes you lose track of time? Something that doesn't require, like outside of work purposes and family purposes, or maybe it does include family. Something that makes you lose track of time.
Lose track of time. Okay, it's real corny.
No.
I can lose track of time when I'm watching Hallmark movies and
Movies.
mystery channel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That's like my little space. And it's not the regular Hallmark. It's the movies and mystery channel in
Mm-hmm.
particular, because I'm good for a little mystery, I like a little suspense. And actually, it happened over the weekend. I was like, "Oh, I'm on like episode 5, my little series. I missed it because it was holiday time, and so
Yes.
that for me is one of my little escapes, and I can just like focus on this little mystery and
Yes.
figuring out who had
Yes.
done it. So that's one of my little things.
And they still show like all the old reruns of like Murder She Wrote, all the shows we grew up
They
on,
do,
80s and 90s
they do,
babies. And they have the cutest little holiday movies like you were just talking about and
they
such. So,
do.
oh, I love that. I love that. So, in the midst of being in the thick of infertility, have you found yourself being going to that more since you guys started in 2017?
I won't say that in particular because that's always
Mm-hmm.
been stable for me, but
Mm-hmm.
other things I have
Yeah.
had to make sure that I dived more into, to
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
a release, have an escape, have a space to just be, and stop the brain from spiraling, as I say.
Mm-hmm.
So there's other things that I've picked up over the last, like, was it going on 5 years now,
Yeah.
to help in that space for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And how did you guys meet? You and hubby. How did y'all meet? How did that happen, girl? Give us a tea.
Girl, we met at work, which was like a
Really?
no. It was a hell no.
Yeah.
It was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, do not get
Right,
trapped
right,
with
right,
this boy
right.
at work. If it goes south, it's gonna be a mess. And
A
I was
hot mess,
new,
okay?
but we're both in broadcast. We started in radio. Different companies, different stations, ended up both coming to Richmond at different
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
He had been there for about 4 years when I got there. And so the last year of his kind of career at that location, we, bonded instantly
Mm-hmm.
as friends. We really were friends first. I know it sounds like really
Okay.
corny cliche, but like I had not really experienced this type of, I think a healthy relationship, like really being friends first, like legit friends,
Okay.
nothing else. And so, we bonded over work, and we bonded over
Wow.
both loving the radio industry and loving media. And we were both in sales. And so that's a hard
Mm.
gig. And so, I was his little mentee, as he always puts it. I really was, he was kind of mentoring me through this,
Mm-hmm.
my first year of being in radio sales. And, we just found solace in each other, and wanting a lot of the same things when it came to career and the hustle and of course later other things like family
Yeah.
and what's important and all of that. But it really was overwork. But I'm just, when I tell you, I was like, this that was not
Mm-mm.
smart. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I want to be known for my work ethic. I don't want to be known for,
Exactly.
dating the boy
Exactly.
next to your cube. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. And
so,
then the
but yeah.
stipulations that come along with that,
Hmm.
being a brown woman. And
Yes.
and it's
Yeah. I
already
didn't want to be
it's
that
already
girl.
so many things that people say about women trying
Hmm.
to climb corporate ladders and all that other
Yeah.
BS, right? So yeah, I
But
get
it
it.
worked
I definitely
out.
get it.
But
Yes, it was
it's like,
gonna have to
don't
work out. Listen, it was
recommend.
gonna have to work out. At
Okay, or
this
I gotta
point,
quit. You gotta go.
it's
I
gotta
gotta
work.
go.
Listen, it was gonna
Or
have to
somebody gotta
work. Yes,
go.
it was gonna have to work. That reminds me of that
Yeah.
movie with Beyonce and Idris Elba when she was his
Obsessed.
secretary and she left.
Yes.
Remember? Yeah. So that reminds me a little bit of that. So I'm glad y'all was able to keep
Hmm.
your jobs, your
Hey,
coins,
me
and
too.
your relationship.
Me
Okay,
too.
listen.
Yes.
So you guys, when did you guys get married? So what year was that when you guys got married?
We got married in 2018, actually.
Okay.
So our
Okay.
wedding was in 19. We got married in
Gotcha.
2018. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so when you guys started trying to conceive, it was in 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Because
Okay.
at that point, I was like, we're already engaged.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're here.
Yeah.
And I was just like, hey, let's just get off birth control and see what happens.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
didn't have any, like preconceived thoughts about it. I didn't know
Okay.
of anything that was going to, stall are planning. I didn't know, and so I was like, get off birth control. Girl, I had the whole Pinterest page set up, child. I was
Yes,
like, ooh, I'm
yes.
gonna be pregnant by
Pinterest is
Christmas.
popping, honey. Yes.
And, oh yes, and I had a little announcement. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So at that point, I was like, okay, I was confident where we were, where we're going, and so yeah, that was the start of it. And so, the whole give it a year. Okay, no big
Mm-hmm.
deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give it a year, a full 12 months, because we don't know otherwise. And that's where we were, until 2018 when we kind of got the, hey, I think it's time to go see a
Mm-hmm.
specialist, and then kind of got that stamp like
Yes.
infertile. It
Yes.
was like, ooh, that
Mm,
hurt.
mm. Yeah.
What's that
Ooh,
mean? What's next?
that thing is something else. Okay, the second ago, right? That you got like that stamp, like infertile and all that, and so you also say on your own podcast,
Hmm.
you speak a lot about your own journey, of course. Getting to know your listeners and such. So you had fibroids and cysts, right? Did you
Yeah,
get diagnosed at
fibroids.
that point or before?
So I knew about the fibroids previous, and the cyst. So actually, the first thing was the cyst because I was having pain. This is years back. Having pain and didn't know what it was, and kind of let it linger for a little while, and then I couldn't. I like doubled over in the car driving. I was like, "Oh no, what's going on?" And at that point, that's when I found out I had ovarian cyst, and it had gotten so large that it was kind of like twisting the ovary a little bit, and that was the pain that I had felt. So that happened first, and from there, the fibroids were obviously seen because I started getting internal ultrasounds, and so that's when it was like, okay, you have, reoccurring fibroids, multiple fibroids. No big deal in terms of, nothing here is telling us that it'll have any effect or anything, that they're not super large. They're manageable at this point. And so, from there, but I always also had painful periods. And so I didn't know until I had surgery years later that I also had endometriosis. And so it was never brought to the table. It was never discussed. It was never even questioned. And so it was cyst, fibroids, and then block tube, surgery, endo. Kind of the order in which those things came about. So yeah.
And I almost kind of feel like, and I don't know if you've seen or kind of felt the same way about those conditions with the
Hmm.
fibroids and also the endometriosis. I kind
Hmm.
of feel like fibroids are usually the black girl thing,
Yep.
and endometriosis is usually a white girl thing. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so I don't think that endometriosis is usually presented as an option for testing for a lot of black women in the beginning of
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's going on with their body when they're saying that they're in pain,
And mostly
which is
because you can only find out if you had surgery. And
exactly.
so, a lot of times, well, I remember being told years ago, don't get surgery, don't get cut. If they go in there, mess something up, And I
Okay.
think that's because for a long time, black women having these kind of elective, if you will, if you want to call it elective surgeries, were very risky, and there weren't enough specialists to know what to do or how to heal. And so they were told things like, "We'll get a hysterectomy." And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
why is that the only option that we're giving women of
Mm-hmm.
color when they have any type of issues in that space? And so I
Yeah.
think for a lot of, women, moms, aunties, grandmas, whatever, it's kind of like, don't get surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have them go in there. Don't have them mess around with your reproductive stuff until you have kids. Wait till after you have kids. And I understood where they were coming from after doing some
After everything,
research
right?
from
Yeah.
what their perspective was. But I also knew that there were different methods now, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
more, thank God, technology and other options, but it's really hard to diagnose. And I think another thing is that black women's pain is not as commonly taken seriously. We all have heard that, and we probably all at one point in time felt that with some kind of medical doctor. Maybe it's not
Yeah.
fertility, it's something else, but
Yeah.
our pain isn't taken as seriously. And so when you're telling them no, but like I can't go to work, or like I'm bleeding through pads, tear pants, or like you're telling them, hey, I physically feel most of the month. Something's not right there. And so it's like you have to find someone that for what you have going. What I'm 33, almost 34. It took me until 30 to be diagnosed with endometriosis because of a surgery. That wasn't even for that. So it happens often, and I keep hearing it more and more and more. And now that I'm in different spaces, like we are in the podcast space, or like following people like Indo Black, which is a great organization, following them, it's like, wow, we out here.
And I only
It's
just
real.
found them a year ago.
Me too.
Okay.
Last year I found them, so, but we're in this space and we're suffering,
Exactly.
and now we're all talking about it, and it's wonderful. But for some, it's too late,
Much
you
too late.
know,
Much too late. And hysterectomy is the only way to heal or to go about some form of healing.
to
Unfortunately.
cure, if you
Yeah.
will, right?
And I heard the same thing from family when they say, don't get that surgery, girl. Make sure you have a kid first. Get a kid out first. Get married. And then you had that surgery, okay? Heard the same thing. But until my mother had to go through the fibroid thing. And then it became a whole different story. My mom was like, look, you don't necessarily have to let them take your whole uterus.
Right.
But if there's ever an issue, let them do what needs to be done, because this pain I wouldn't wish on
Yeah.
anybody,
Yeah.
and of course we wouldn't. And so you coming out of surgery, and then they tell you about this endometriosis. Did you even know what endometriosis was prior?
I'm gonna be honest. I had heard of it, but I think I mentioned before in another podcast that my husband was the first one to mention that to me and say, "Do you think you have this?" And I was like, "I don't know," because
Let me find
he
out how to
has
be. Hubby went
saw.
down the Google rabbit hole. Let me find out.
First of all, he's been very good about that. Like he has gone down lots of Google rabbit holes for
Yes, I love
me, and
it.
he'll bring
I
up
love it.
articles and like share stuff.
Yeah.
He's been great, but like
Oh,
he had saw so many the TV ads for it, so he was
okay.
like,
Okay.
"That sounds like you," and I was like,
Sound a little
I mean,
endo-ish.
it does,
Yeah.
but I feel like at this point in my life, somebody would have mentioned it to me if I could have had it, right? Like, how come
Right.
no one brought it up? And I've had some great doctors, some great OBGYNs, a black female OBGYN who's been fantastic, but she ain't never said, check this out, or what you think about
Right.
this. And so he brought it up. I kind of brushed it off at that point and kept moving forward. But yeah, after the surgery, I mean, it made sense. It was just
It
like,
made total sense. Yeah.
all these common symptoms made sense. I could check, several off the list. And what they said was that the tube, so I had a blocked tube.
Okay.
And so they had said, like, that tube on that side was just endo-ridden. And so that caused it to be blocked. And it wasn't a case of being unblocked. Sometimes they say tubes might be able to be unblocked through different
Yeah.
remedies or different things. But they're like, we're pretty sure this is not going to be an unblockable tube. So let's take it out, because if you don't need it, it could hamper, verse help. So let's take it out. So when they went and they removed the tube, saw the endo, they were able to, I think, take away some of the other endo on the other side. But as we all know, with that disease, it's reoccurring. As we mentioned, unless you have surgery, and even with surgery, it tends to, and I mean, I haven't heard otherwise, it will come back. It's not going to just stop. So unless you, said get a full hysterectomy, or you're during pregnancy, when you're not having your cycle, it's going to come back, and it's just what it is. It's a chronic illness or disease, because there's no
Yeah.
cure for it. And it's going to come back. But it made sense, and I think I was a little upset that it hadn't come up sooner. I was like, wow, maybe I could have saved my tube.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing good and well, I only need one to naturally conceive, and I don't need either if I do IVF. So, yeah, it's not the end of the world. But in that moment, it kind of felt like it was.
Oh, it's
'Cause I feel like
devastating.
I
Yeah.
lost a part of my reproductive system. And I was like, well, the other tube is now, it's open, the other one, but we don't really know what kind of quality it is. And you really just don't know that until you start trying again.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went through being upset about it, being mad it wasn't brought up sooner. But then I was like reinvigorated to like start trying again. I know I had to like, heal and all of that, but I was like, okay, surely now we got that out the way, remove some fibroids. We
We
ready to
cleaning it up, baby.
go.
Yeah.
Right, we
We
cleaned up in
ready.
here. We're
We're
ready to
ready.
go.
Yes.
And then we started doing IUIs, and nothing was happening. So that was frustrating and sad,
Yeah.
you
And you
know.
were doing medicated cycles, right?
Yeah, I started with those. I think that's kind of everyone's like gateway drug is like Clomid,
Yeah.
and what's the other one? I can't think of what the name of it is.
I can't remember the name of it is, but Clomid
But you know,
is the most common
yeah,
one for
yeah.
everybody with any condition. Yeah, for
Right,
sure.
start with Clomid, then we did the other one, and then we got, and then he said, well, you know, we've done, you shouldn't do, you know, too many of these,
Yeah.
you know, medicated cycles. So that's when we went into surgery, and then got out of that and came back. That was all 2019, and so I took a
Mm-hmm.
break. It was good timing. I took a break. We had, you know, wedding coming up and all of that, so took my
Yeah.
break, enjoyed the rest of my 2019. And when I came back in 2020, like ready to go, my doctor had retired. And I had no idea. And I
Mm.
was like, dang,
Heck on it.
I gotta
Right.
start
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah. The
Like,
audacity to just leave me
okay,
like
and not
this and
tell
didn't even
me.
send me a
How
letter.
dare you not
Okay.
tell me? I ain't get a letter, nothing. So I was like, well,
Exactly.
congrats to him, whatever.
Yeah.
But ended up getting a really amazing female specialist,
Wonderful.
and she's been great ever since. So, you know,
Yeah.
all things for a reason, but she's been fantastic. Same practice, but different doctor.
Gotcha. Gotcha. At least you can go to the same building and that
Yes.
familiarity is there with
Yeah.
all the
It
staff and the nurses
helps.
and such. It helps. It helps a
Yeah,
lot when
it
they know you, they know
does.
your protocol and such, even if the doctor's still learning,
Yep.
for sure, for
Yep.
sure. And so at this point, you're ready to go full speed, gung ho. You and hubby are ready. But I wanted to backtrack really quickly because you're a bonus mom too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter
So
has
that,
two
how did
girls.
that play into your feelings of, because a lot of times we just feel inadequate when we cannot conceive naturally,
Absolutely.
and then you're having all these surgeries, and you feel like,
Yeah.
God damn, I'm just being a burden on this man, and just everything. And so
Yeah.
I know that must have been really, really difficult wanting to give this gift, and you couldn't
Yes.
in the way that
Yes.
you thought you were going to be able to. So walk us through
Yeah.
how you coped with being a bonus mom and going through this in the very beginning in the shock of it all.
In those early moments, I wasn't coping. I wasn't.
Okay.
I was angry. I was
Yeah.
sad. I was depressed. Anxiety was, you know, through the roof at all times. And like you said, you know, you want to be able to create life with the person who you chose to be with, and to feel like you aren't able to is hurtful as hell. And I already have children, and for me to be trying so hard to do what came naturally in those situations was just hard. I was never ready for that feeling. And I told him later on the road, like, you know, I was not the best partner to you during that time.
Hmm.
I wasn't the best, you know, nothing. I
Yeah.
wasn't good for myself. I wasn't good for the girls. I remember there would be moments where they would be visiting on the weekend, and I would just kind of shut myself off into like our bedroom,
Hmm.
because it was just an overwhelming sense that I just wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fair to anyone. Fertility ain't fair. But, you know,
Shameless plug, you guys. Shameless plug.
there it is. But it was just, I wasn't ready for that feeling. I didn't know how hard it was going to hit me. I didn't know how negative I was going to feel towards it. It was really hard, and so, you know, it took a lot to get through those early moments of just being in a really dark space.
Yeah.
You know, therapy, of course, was involved. Journaling was involved. Meditating, um, praying differently. I've changed my prayer up a lot during these last four or
Yeah.
5 years. How I prayed, what
Hmm.
I prayed for, and it was just hard. There's no way around it.
Hmm.
You know, I felt jealous,
Hmm.
and that's a nasty feeling because it takes you
Very.
down dark holes. You know, and so that's where I was. I couldn't have ever prepared for how that made me feel.
Yeah. And what was your breaking point where you knew you had to get help outside of your just talking and communicating with your spouse? Was there a specific moment where you were like, no, I can't, I just can't, this can't be anymore. We got to do something different.
I think I had a moment in therapy when I just really was like, I don't like how I feel.
Hmm.
Like, I don't want to feel angry towards you or towards your children. That's not
Yeah.
right. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel depressed over the fact that I cannot, or I have not been able to as yet do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to feel jealous. I don't, I didn't want to feel these really negative thoughts anymore,
Yeah.
because that place was not a place that was going to even allow me, I think, to conceive, to be honest.
Honestly, yeah. Yeah.
And I know at the end of the day, it's God's timing, right? Regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt like looking back, like, okay, well, how is God going to open up your mind, body, everything to prepare for conceiving when you are just in such an awful mental and physical space? And like, we know what stress can do to the body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also what it was for me, is that I knew that my anxiety and my stress was causing a physical reaction.
Right. Right.
And when you are
That
having
mind
panic
body connection,
attacks,
right?
absolutely. And when
Yeah.
you are having panic attacks, and when you feel like your body is kind of just, I just felt unhealthy all
Didn't feel
over.
like you were there, right? It's like you looking at yourself from a different angle
Yeah.
outside of
I was like, I
yourself.
don't want to
Yeah,
be in that space anymore. And I don't think I can, my body can't take being in this space for too much longer. Like,
for sure.
that's what it was for me. I want to be a different person than I am right now, and I want to be,
Yeah.
who I'm supposed to be, and this ain't
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. You wanted to feel whole again. Completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I understand. And so we'll go right back forward to when you've healed physically from the procedures and such, and getting the endometriosis diagnosis. And so you're ready and you're doing Clomid cycles and the IUIs are being unsuccessful. So how many guys did you guys actually do before you stopped and decided that you were going to take that break from IUIs?
Yeah, so we did 3 in 2020.
Okay.
And then I did one more in 2021. I don't know why. And I see a lot of women ask questions in like groups, like, how do you know when it's time to like transition or like
Right.
stop? Because there's no number, right? You can do as many as you want to do. If you're going to
Exactly.
pay for it, they'll keep
Exactly.
giving it to you.
They're going to take it and they're not going to turn
Yeah,
you
you could
away
do
either.
10 if you want, right? And it's like, but what's the magic number? And there is none. There is
Yeah.
none. There's no magic number for any procedure that's going to, unfortunately tell you at this point you should move on, right? Because there are
Yeah.
women who have
Yeah.
got pregnant on number 1. I've seen women say, on number 9, I got pregnant. There's no number. So, but for me, I didn't know when I was going to know. And
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
worried about that, but I knew at the end of 2020 I still wanted to do one more. For whatever reason, it was just in
Mhm.
my brain, just do one more, one more, one more. And so I did one more, and obviously it was negative. And so at that point I knew I was ready to stop doing this
Okay.
procedure.
Yeah.
But it was just something that you felt like, I felt like it was time to move on.
Yeah.
And so that's when we kind of went back to the drawing board. The doctor consult, let's kind of look at what an IVF plan could look like.
Mhm. Mhm.
What are our odds? Once again, I'm faith-based, but, on paper, what are our scientific odds, and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. And so I was like, hey, I think this gives a really good chance. I mean, it went from like
Mhm.
I forgot the exact numbers, but let's say it's like a 10 to
Mhm.
12% chance on IUI. It's like a 60% chance in IVF. That's good odds, for fertility treatments. I think over 50% is like, yes. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's when we said, okay, that's going to be our next step. And that was like probably the middle of 2020.
Okay.
But then get that little cost sheet. Girl, I almost passed out. I
Yeah.
swear.
There's a down payment on the house. Minimum.
Okay.
Okay.
Or a used
Minimum.
car paid in
Yeah.
cash.
Either or.
Like,
It's a whole heck of a lot of damn money.
it's
Okay.
a lot. And I think I was more sticker shocked than my husband was. Like, he was like, I mean, yeah, but we gotta do what we gotta do. I'm like, I hear you. I'm there, right? Like, I'm all
Yeah.
in. I'm not
Mhm.
backtracking. But, like, I was just like, my brain had to get wrapped
It's
around the
overwhelming.
fact that
Yeah.
it was overwhelming. It was, because in my mind I was like, for sure, I thought, IVF was like, ten to $12,000,
Mhm.
and for someone in a different country it might be right. But
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm just speaking from what I saw on paper and what I've seen. So I thought that, and that's what it might cost for one cycle.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I thought that included like multiple cycles and multiple transfers and meds, and that's the all in number. No, that's
You
just
just
the
go to
base
the clinic.
price.
That doesn't
That's
include your anesthesiologist, which you
all
pay
that.
out separately every time there's an egg retrieval or transfer. It doesn't include your medication, like you said, and any other
Anything
things
else?
you want to throw on there.
Right.
ICSI, where they insert the sperm directly into the egg, like it doesn't include any of that stuff, and it's some BS. It's some
It's wild. It's
BS.
pretty wild to think about it.
Yeah,
And so he was like,
it
yeah,
is.
but when you make a large, major purchase in your life, that's what I said. I hear you. Here's the difference. If I go into the car dealership and I get a car for 25,000, I'm walking out with a car, okay, in my hand. It's tangible. If I pay 25,000 for a procedure, I may or may not walk out with a baby
Yeah.
in 9 months, right? Like I may or may not. I might. This is your opportunity. It's one more chance, and I think that's a common thing that if you're going into this journey, you have to understand is that
Mm-hmm.
IVF does not guarantee you having a baby. Um, at this point, nothing guarantees you having a baby.
At all.
Or conceiving for that matter, right? Like we're not even
Yeah.
to the have it. We're on the conception. We're trying to conceive it, in here,
Still trying to conceive. Yeah.
and so I think that's something that when I used to think about IVF, I thought it was a guaranteed method,
Yeah. I had
but
the
it
same
never
reaction.
was.
Yeah.
But the education wasn't there. I just assumed and thought, okay, well, yeah, surely it costs a lot because it works. So
Exactly. And that was my same exact thought process in the beginning too, after an unsuccessful IO. And I was like, well, surely this ish is going to effing work
it has
because
to work,
I'm about to kick out 20 G's. What is going
right?
on? Okay.
Right.
It is going to work, and it's going to work the first effing
The
time. See
first
what it better the
time.
first time.
And we'll have
Okay.
extra embryos and they'll work every single time. And,
Exactly. Mm-mm.
we'll have 3 kids in no
Mm-mm.
time.
Mm-mm.
Like,
Listen, and maybe I can knock it out with one swing and end up with twins or something like that. Like I
period.
was saying all the things. So I
Period.
understand. I understand, stand. And so, how did you? I know you guys are moving into it in the midst of everything. So, what was the point where you were like, all right, let's just do it. We going to just write the check and we going to forget about
So,
it.
right,
Yeah.
just forget about it. I knew I was going to do it regardless. I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't a question. It was just a matter of, timing and then figuring it all out, like how you going to pay
Yeah, for
for it.
sure. And then the
Um,
schedule of your work
all of
with the
that.
appointments. Yeah, yeah,
All of
for
that.
sure.
And I think, I'm very lucky that in my career, my job, like I have a good work schedule. They're aware of what I've been going through. And so it's been a blessing, honestly, to have that flexibility to move into
That's
appointments and
great.
all of that. So for me, that was a blessing. Another blessing was that we found out my husband switched jobs over the pandemic. And so leaving broadcast media, going into a different field, found out just on a whim, kind of like, because we were like, for sure he doesn't have coverage. I know I don't have it. He don't have it either. Come to find out he did. So on
Mm,
his new insurance plan, they did have a certain percent covered for fertility treatments. And so
wonderful,
that was cool,
wonderful.
but I wasn't under his plan.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and fertility does not qualify as a life-changing event.
Exactly.
So we had to wait until now to switch
Mm-hmm.
over to new insurance, which is fine. It's like, hey, if we gonna get a large portion that's covered, say less, God.
Yeah,
Like we
it's
we
worth
we
the wait,
waited,
right?
worth the wait, and so that was a huge blessing that came as an unexpected, and him changing jobs, going through this transition, pandemic, life, figuring out how we're gonna pay for it. All this happened, and then boom, we got that information. So that was like a huge weight lifted off, knowing that in the coming year that be able to be our plan. So as of now, I'm actually waiting to hear back from my clinic now, waiting to get, new pricing and figure out,
Mm-hmm.
what's left, what will we need out of pocket. But that's going to be that was a game changer. So
Mm-hmm.
right now, just waiting on that. and then, looking to see when we can get started and how long it's going to take to get authorized and all of that good stuff. But send me any
Yeah.
good advice, girl. Give me some tips for.
Just keep it open. Look, I'll tell you this much. Keep an open mind through like the whole process of it. Just keep an open mind. And you are under the age of 35. So look into natural cycle IVF. That's what I did. And that's what we
Okay.
were successful with. And
Wait,
unfortunately,
what's that? Give me that. What's that mean?
yeah, natural cycle IVF, and my clinic is in DC and Virginia, Dominion Fertility, and they offer natural cycle IVF, which is where it's less medicated, and it doesn't require as many meds, and they allow your body to ovulate naturally, and you take one or two, couple trigger shots, and then that's it. And then you're on estrogen and progesterone just to sustain the pregnancy, because going through IVF, we're more
Right.
likely to have miscarriage
Right.
because of the invasiveness of the procedures, right?
Right.
But you don't have to worry about OHSS because you're not given
Overly
such power.
stimulating.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So it's just one fresh embryo transfer. If it hatches and all that good stuff, I said hatches like it's an egg, but
I mean,
if the
it's
sperm and the egg meet,
that's how I see it. It's baby
yeah,
egg.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If it's an embryo and it makes it to an 8 day, what is it? It breaks down into eight, 4 or 6 or 8 before they transfer it back into you, right? And so the cells are multiplying in that thing, and then they transfer it. And so it's just one egg. Unfortunately, I didn't have any frozen. I wish I had have frozen some of those things because my eggs were really good back then. I was around your age when we started, and so just go open minded.
Okay.
Again, review all of your options and review them things one more time before
I
you commit
will.
to any one way, because there are some things like natural cycle that you can start with and then move into more invasive forms of ART later down the road if it gets to that point.
Okay.
And whoever your support system is, girl, hold on tight. Hold
Ooh,
on
for dear
very,
life.
very tight for dear life, like your life depends it. And if they
Yeah.
say they're going to be available, make sure they mean that ish,
Yeah.
because it's going to take a lot of support depending on how it goes. And at any
Yeah.
moment, anything can change. That's why I say stay open, because anything can change. Your body may not respond the way that the doctors anticipated based on your overall health. So it takes a lot of, and you're already somebody self motivated, so it takes a lot of self healing and self what's the word I'm looking for, but just checking in with yourself, you know
Yeah.
what I mean,
Yeah.
and making sure you're okay. And when you're not
Yeah.
okay, let your man know today ain't the day, babe. Okay,
Look, he
just
used to
give me a minute.
that.
Give me a minute, okay? It's so how are you feeling though moving into? I know you sound very excited, but also very cautiously optimistic too. So tell us how you're feeling right now, moving forward in the
Yeah.
next days, even
Right.
weeks, even.
I think you said it. I'm cautiously optimistic for sure, but I am excited.
Good.
I think I've been on a break for a while. It's been nice. I mean, it's
Yeah.
been nice to get through the back half of 2021 and not be worried about appointments and shots and medication and monitoring and all of that. It's been nice to have this break, but I'm ready. I'm ready
Okay.
to jump back in. Um, that's why I'm trying to get all the advice that I can for the
Yeah.
IVF
Yeah.
cycle season, because it's going to be different. It's a
Very.
different protocol, and so I know it's going to be the most grueling, physically and emotionally and mentally, and so. But I'm ready. I'm ready
Yeah.
to jump back in. I was like, hey y'all, hello. I'm ready to get back. Like, give me the info. I'm excited, but I mean, I think you always have to have that. It's not doubt, but as just being that cautiousness, because you know how fragile these journeys are when it
Yeah.
comes. Like I said, every moment can change the path of what's next. And when you haven't had success, right? It's you're always kind of just like keeping yourself level,
Level
because you
for
don't want to get
sure.
too excited, but you also can't get too down. You just got to be
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, just like take everything, be open minded and take, each appointment for what it is. That was really hard though. Like when you started IUIs, it was hard to take every appointment at face value because you're always like, but what's next? But what's next? Or
And you're always like
the
ready to
2 week wait
go.
period.
Dang, I gotta wait for
I'm
this
gonna test now. I'm
during
gonna test now.
period to start to do anything. I can't.
Right. What's that? What's that feel like? Is that a
Yes,
baby or is it
yes.
a period? Was it like
Right.
So you were always just worried about the
The
next
next thing.
thing and then getting
Yeah.
beside yourself because then if you get too excited, next thing you know, you're looking at nursery items. Child, you ain't
Yeah.
even pregnant yet. Or if
Yeah.
you get too down, then
You don't even want to look at that
you
stuff.
don't want
You
to look
can't
at it.
pass the aisle in Target, okay? And we
Can't.
all love Target.
You can't be
We
on
love a
you
good
can't be
Target
on social
run.
media. You can't
Nope.
you don't want to get out of bed, right?
Yeah.
So it's that happy medium of like just taking each appointment at face value and just focusing on that appointment because
I
either
love that.
direction is just
It
a
can go
slippery
either way.
slope.
Yeah. And it might be a fourth way that comes out of nowhere. So there's that.
Always.
But I love that because that's a great reminder for mindfulness. And mindfulness is not always in a lot of people equate it to prayer and meditation and worship, right? But it's much more than that. It's being mindful in the negative things that happen in life or
Yeah.
things that are difficult, like IVF and loss and adoption and all those things, right?
Yeah.
So I love that reminder that you gave everyone that, just being mindful in that moment and dealing with that today and today only sometimes,
Yeah.
and not jumping too far ahead. So that's great. So I told you guys in the intro that Brittney has her own podcast as well called Fertility Ain't Fair. Yes, you heard that right. Ain't fair.
Ain't.
Because it ain't.
Dash
Okay?
T.
It ain't fair at all.
Ain't.
It
It's
sucks.
not.
Return to sender, right? So
Return.
tell us about why you, well, I know why you started. So tell us
Yeah.
why you started while you're still in the midst of it.
I had to, right? So I had to. I needed a space to just be. I needed a place to vent. So it really started out as a private blog, and I just all my thoughts were coming so fast. So instead of writing everything down, I was just typing stuff out. And then from there, I was like, okay, let me hop on social media and start a page. I didn't promote it. I didn't even connect my personal page with it. It was very separate. It was like I just need a space that's my own little bubble that I can go to and connect with people and see what's going on and join some groups and follow some things and just kind of have my own solace. And then I was like, well, you know what? I want to do a podcast. I'm a radio girl anyway. I'm in media.
Right.
I love,
Makes sense.
so it made sense. And I was like, I had been wrestling with God about really being transparent
Okay.
because no one outside of like count less than one hand knew I even had this brand and this page. And so when I decided to do the podcast, I was like, you know what, now is the time to connect everything. And so I said, hey, my first post kind of coming out the gate was like, I have a new podcast, but also here's my brand, here's my page. And my girlfriends were like, how the hell do we not know you had this going
Exactly.
on? Not the journey per se, but how do we not know that you had all this content and that you had started a brand and that you had bought some merchandise? Like what the hell? And I was like, I wasn't ready.
Yeah. For
Sorry,
sure.
not sorry. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be that vulnerable because I knew at drop of a dime I could just be like breaking down. And so I had to get to the place where that'll still happen sometimes, but I had to get to the place where I was able to at least talk about my journey, and then find others who were, in the same community of space, and definitely more women of color that were in the same space. And so it has been nothing short of a blessing, meeting women like yourself and so many others who I can now reach back out to, not just for content, but for my own journey, advice. And it has, when I tell you I had more girlfriends or girls I went to college with or in different circles that reached out to me after that initial post and was like, hey girl, me too, I see you. I said, really? Really? Had no, it just happened literally last night. Someone reached out to me from a social org that we're in, an all women's organization, and said, hey, I had no idea you were struggling with infertility. We did it for 4 years. We ended up having IVF to get our daughter. Did you know that? No, had no idea. I've seen you for the last 5 years of my life in different settings and doing volunteer work. Had no idea. And so I've had more of those happen over the last, almost a year. Podcast started last June. So, over the last half a year than I ever could have imagined. And so I look back and just kind of laugh at wrestling with being open and transparent. But it has been just amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, and it's
really
just
is.
so much more common than you ever think. And my first whole season of the podcast were people mostly that I knew through either myself or a friend of a friend or couples that we knew. And I mean, we had no idea.
Right, right.
So it's been
And that
amazing.
just goes to show we don't talk enough about these types of things
That's
as
it.
girlfriends,
That's
as
it.
friends, and as sisters,
Yeah.
mothers, aunties, and all that stuff.
Yep.
And so I resonate a lot with that, especially in brown communities. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that our voices are shunned for most of our lives. Like,
Yeah.
girl, you know you can't say that, or, no, or girl, you know you can't do that. They're gonna think
That's
you
private. That's for
such and such and
family.
such and such and such. And a lot of black families have that saying, and a lot of people of color in general that I know,
Yeah.
they all have the same saying in a different way in a different language. Like, what's happens in the house stays
Stays in
in
the
the
house.
goddamn house,
That's
okay?
right.
And I think that we do ourselves a disservice because it becomes mental conditioning, and then we don't until
Yeah.
somebody comes out like you or I, we're like, hey, I got this thing called
We're
infertility.
here.
We're here, then all of a sudden everybody just comes out of the woodworks,
Yeah.
like, girl,
Me
I did this, and
too.
auntie such and what you mean, auntie such and such, what? Why nobody didn't tell me? Out here thinking
Nobody
I'm
told me.
alone, you know
Alone. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
crazy, and then you have
Yep.
people in the that are veterans in the space, like your Broken Brown Egg, your Fertility for
Yes.
Color Girls, and who else? Sisters in Laws with Erica McAfee,
Hannah's Daughters of Hannah.
Hannah's Daughters in Atlanta that do the group meetups, when before COVID and stuff,
Yeah.
and a couple of other organizations that have been around more than 3 years, because I've only been around for 2. So,
Yeah.
there's a couple more, but not it has not 10 yet. I don't think we
No.
reached 10. And then we have Calais Stewart, who's a public figure who's now speaking a lot about it, and
Yeah.
Eggs Over Easy.
Yeah.
Like, when
Loved
I
it.
found out about Eggs Over Easy, I was like, shut up. When is it dropping?
Right.
I've been watching her
Right.
for 2 years, and it
Yeah.
took her 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was in those trenches
She
really
was.
hard, really, really hard.
Yes. And I can only imagine what she had to do and we spoke actually on my podcast, but
Yeah, I
I
heard
can
the
only
episode that you did with her. Yeah,
what she
yeah.
had to do to get to the point of convincing a network. You know what I mean? And thank God for OWN. To accept that. I would
Listen,
love to know how many networks turned it down. You
all of
know,
them,
probably.
clearly, all of
Yeah.
them did,
Yeah.
because OWN was the one who featured it and premiered it. Now everybody
Yeah.
gonna try to pick up the pieces,
Yeah.
but OWN
Yeah.
was the one who premiered it, and then
Yeah.
you had her on the podcast and stuff, which was fantastic. I was glad somebody was able to do it and get in touch with Krita before I could. And she's getting so much exposure now, which is
Yeah.
amazing. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I feel like now, because she did that, and Calais was a part of it, and Keisha Knight Pulliam, and
Yeah.
some other
Angel
great media
Day.
people like yourself, and Coach Jesse and all that. And so all this
Yeah.
exposure for organizations like the Tina Q Cade Foundation,
Yeah.
and was on the documentary too. And then the young couple who was still in the thick, I can't remember her
Yes.
name, but they're
Who was
public
going through the
figures
whole
too.
process? Yeah.
Yeah. And, just getting all that exposure. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. I couldn't imagine
Yeah.
6 years ago, before I had my son, like, what, that we would be here today. So
I
it's
know.
incredible what happens. It took a long time, but it was so very
Yeah.
quick. So
Yeah.
very quick, how things
That's
turned out. And
dope.
I'm just ecstatic that
Me
more
too.
brown women are being comfortable displaying their journeys. And
Yeah.
that's why I was like, so glad Brittney said yes, because,
Oh my God,
you
no.
know,
Look, I'm glad we connected. I'm so glad we connected. And you already know you up next on mine. So just,
yes. Oh,
you
I
already
got to
know.
get myself scheduled too. Let me get
I
on
know
that. I
you
got to get on
do.
it. I got to get on it, because I had got
But
my
it's
dates
coming. But it's
mixed up.
coming.
Yes, I got my dates
Yeah.
mixed up when you guys went away, and I was like, oh shoot, she did
Yes.
have that note in there about that. I was like, oh. I probably sound like a damn nutcase, but
No, you don't. No, we're gonna get it
so
together.
yeah, we're gonna get it together, and we out here in these fertility streets, as Kelly would
We are
say.
here.
We are here for you guys,
Yeah.
no matter race, creed, nationality, religion, all those things. And so, Fertility Ain't Fair is also a very diverse podcast, and I'm sure that if you guys listen, you will really, really love it. And you cannot miss the artwork. It's beautiful, it's vibrant and colorful. You can't miss it. You
Oh,
can't
thank
miss it
you.
on social media either. Fertility Ain't Fair. Make sure you guys connect with Brittney. Keep up with
Yes.
her and her story through the pod and through her Instagram and whatever else she chooses to do for advocacy. So, anything else you want to say to the people, to the friends, Brittney, before we go?
Just stay hopeful. That's all I can
Yeah,
say. I mean, I'm keeping it. I'm staying hopeful. Just stay hopeful. I use that as my kind of end line after every podcast. So just stay hopeful. And I really want to say to the younger girls, we're here for you.
yeah.
We walked. What we ran so you could walk. What is it?
I don't remember. I'm
I
getting old,
forgot,
girl.
Lord. Oh God,
I'm
I was trying to say
almost
something,
40.
something good. I was like, oh, child, here we go. We
Yeah.
could
And
always
know your
edit
fertility
out, but
status
yeah.
too. Get yourself
Know your
checked.
fertility
Yeah.
status. Get yourself checked. Do not have any OBG tell you they cannot do that for you. You can check how many your egg reserve. You can
At
check
any
your tubes.
time.
You can check for fibroids. And you can check for these things.
Yeah.
So please, I think sooner than later, it's not always about having kids. And I think that's
Exactly.
where, and we can go to a whole rabbit hole on that, but that's where I think
A whole other episode.
it gets, muddy, is
Yeah.
that we've
Yeah.
connected, fertility and our women's health with just having children. It's not just about that. It's about having options. It's about knowing what's going on in your body. It's about just having the education earlier so you're able to either correct things or find out things or remedy things if possible. And just to know, as you mentioned, your fertility status. So
Yeah.
even if you're like, girl, I ain't having kids the next 10 years, that's fine. That's fine. This is more than just about having a child. So know
Yeah.
your status, feel empowered to know what's going on in your body, and advocate for yourself until someone
Until you
listens.
leave.
So
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, Brittany girl.
No,
Thank
pleasure's all
you.
mine. Thank you.
And thank you, friends, for tuning in to another episode of Infertility and Me podcast. Y'all know where to find me. Peace and blessings.